This movie's a damn miracle. And I say that because this movie had everything working against it, and in my humble opinion, end up still being a great film. It's nowhere near perfect. It's nowhere top tier MCU. It's a flawed Frankenstein kind of film that you could tell was pulled apart and put back together again multiple times. Look what they were trying to accomplish, handing over the franchise to a new actor and a new lead embodying the role, bringing back characters that we haven't seen in years, some in decades, juggling multiple storylines at the same time while trying to capture back the feel of the old films that people loved. That's absolutely a recipe for disaster. We haven't seen any franchise successfully do that or even attempt to do something like that ever. But despite all that, I walked out of my theater with a huge smile. Let's start off with the man of the hour, and that is Anthony Mackie reprising his role as Sam Wilson. I'll admit, even though I'm a fan of Anthony Mackie, I had my doubts that he could carry a big franchise, big budget movie. But for me, he stepped up in a huge way, commanding the screen in a way that made me feel really excited about seeing him lead the Avengers. It's the first time since Endgame that I felt like I saw someone that could slide in that slot, that hole that's missing that happened when Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. left the MCU. Someone that could come in there and be an anchor. What helps that is the way Sam is written. Sam Wilson is not a carbon copy of Steve Rogers. He is very similar to the character and embodies the character in his own unique way. While Steve Rogers is stoic, isolated, and very untrusting, a man out of time trying to reshape the world the way he knows it, Sam is the complete opposite. He's approachable, relatable, and a man that's living in the present. We see him hanging out in bars, talking to fellow servicemen, being on the ground, something that we didn't really get to see Steve Rogers do in terms of connecting with people, and I think his version of Captain America is something that regular civilians could connect with. And what adds a layer to this role and what this movie does really well by continuing the storyline from Falcon and Winter Soldier is Sam's struggles with being Captain America. The way he's trying to be the perfect person up front for everybody with showing no weaknesses or cracks, but him feeling that pressure of someone that doesn't have powers, doesn't have experience doing this, and has everyone looking for him to fail at any moment. That added insecurity is something that we don't see in the MCU that much, and I'm really glad that Sam has that struggle so he can develop and prove everybody wrong. Mackie brings a confident, charismatic energy to the role. He's really funny, but finds to bring like a vulnerable softness there that makes him very relatable to a lot of the characters here and kind of disarms them, which I thought was really dope. His experience as a veteran counselor is woven perfectly in this movie into the plot, and the way he moves and does a lot of his actions really makes him stand out versus a lot of other protagonists in the MCU. This makes him a different kind of leader. While Steve Rogers was there to buck the system after he realized it was corrupt, Sam understands that bucking the system all the time is not going to change the world. In order to change the people in the world, he has to change the people in the world around him, but also the system that controls it. This plays out in the main struggle that Sam Wilson has in the film, him trying to work with Thaddeus Ross, who is now the president of America, him trying to trust Thaddeus Ross, a man that, through past in the MCU has been in conflict not only with Sam, but Hulk and everybody that's been in the Avengers, but also trying to stay woke and vigilant to the points that some things may be going on behind the scenes that he wants to make sure he's aware of. Another thing that helps Sam shine is the chemistry with his supporting cast that he's starting to build across Falcon and Winter Soldier and now in this movie. His interactions with Isaiah Bradley, who, Carl Lumbly, fantastic, and a character that I want to see get like a special on the Disney Plus or even his own movie. He does such a great job embodying his character. And Danny Ramirez is Joaquin Torres. These three have very good chemistry to the point the early scenes where there was a lot of them interact with each other was a joy to watch. Danny Ramirez shines as Torres, a tech savvy, hilarious, and eager to please Sam's sidekick who steps in the role of the new Falcon. Their dynamic mirrors the relationship of Sam and Steve when Sam was Steve's partner / sidekick, which makes their growing bond throughout the movie even more compelling, especially where they end up towards the end of the movie and the conversation that they had. I really like what they're building here. It also extends to Sam Wilson's relationship with Isaiah Bradley. I really like what Isaiah Bradley represents in his life. It's like if that scientist who was behind Steve Rogers in the first Avenger never died and he had him throughout his journey. That's kind of what Isaiah Bradley stands for Sam Wilson, which is really, really dope. And when he gets framed for the attempt at assassination of the president, Sam's interest and what he wants to do as Captain America starts to come in conflict. As Sam Wilson, he wants to protect Isaiah Bradley, but as Captain America, he wants to work with the government, and that's becoming a central conflict, which ties in the bigger scheme, terrorist scheme that's trying to start a world war, which brings the socio-political thrillers from the old Captain America movies to the forefront here, which brings that little, nostalgic feel. Surprisingly, Brave New World feels like a two-hander, with Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross feeling like a secondary protagonist in the movie. With the late great William Hurt unable to reprise his role as the character, we get the legendary Harrison Ford stepping in, and he delivers. His performance feels ripped straight out of other political thrillers like The Fugitive or Air Force One, which ups the ante and adds a weight and a presence to each scene. He makes the overall storyline compelling because Ross is trying to prove that he's a changed man. Now the president, he's trying to bring the world together after an amazing scientific discovery that is going to change the landscape of the MCU forever. But just like Sam has dual struggles, what he wants as Sam Wilson and what he wants as Captain America, Thunderbolt Ross has those dual struggles as well, what he wants personally versus what he needs to do as the president. And his presidential agendas come into direct conflict with Sam. And Ford doesn't sleepwalk through the role either, like we've seen him in other big budget films where he didn't really care. He brings his A game here, which heightens the tensions between Thaddeus Ross and Sam throughout the film, making one of the highlights of the movie. For all his strengths, Brave New World is not top tier MCU, which I was hoping. This was my #1 most anticipated movie of the year. I was hoping this was going to be one of the best MCU movies that we've gotten. And while it's nowhere near as bad as I think a lot of the critics are saying, it's not top 10 of all time either. It's somewhere a little bit above the middle of the pack to me, and I think the biggest culprit of that is the runtime. It's one of the shortest films in the franchise, and it shows. Plot lines feel rushed, character moments trimmed down, and action sequences don't feel like they get to be fleshed out as much as they should be. And while the action scenes don't get the breathing room that they deserve, there are a lot of new characters that are having their first time appearances in the MCU that don't get a lot of time to shine as well. They get little bit tidbits here, but we don't get a lot to get their motivations, their backgrounds, or why they're even have a dog in the game. They end up feeling a little bit undeveloped or underutilized, and this also has the MCU Phase 1 issue where the central villain, which they haven't really revealed in the marketing, is not very dynamic. He's one note, kind of undercooked, still interesting and impactful within the movie itself, but could have had a better presence in the movie if he was better written. Where the movie does shine is the action. The fight choreography is fantastic, showcasing how Sam, a normal human that doesn't have the super soldier serum, which is a conflict in the movie where he's wondering if he should take it or not, showcasing how he can handle himself as the leader of the Avengers, as the new Captain America, and be able to fight something like the Red Hulk. Close quarter hand-to-hand combat sequences, the chaotic shootouts, and the flight action sequences are all fantastic. And yes, the teasers teased a battle, a showdown between the Red Hulk and Captain America, and it did not disappoint. Destructive, chaotic, intense. They did a really, really great job of making that deliver, and I think it's one of the best showdowns that we've had in the MCU in a long time. My biggest gripe with the film, unfortunately, is the VFX is such a mixed bag. While the Red Hulk looks amazing, as the Hulk usually does throughout most of these projects, a lot of the background effects look fake, look very noticeably green screen, especially in the back half of the film. I think the first half of the film looks really, really good, but once we get closer and closer to more fantastical conflicts, the VFX starts getting a little wonky. Green screen heavy backdrops in this film are very immersion breaking. Unfortunately, I think that they did a poor job of reshooting these scenes. These seems like the parts that the trades and things like that we're talking about was being reshot. While it's not the worst that I've ever seen, nowhere close, they are very noticeable. And I feel like this is a thing that should not be happening at this point in the MCU, because we've like 35, almost 40 films in, and recent films have looked great in Phase 4 and Phase 5, and even some TV shows. So the fact that some of the scenes in the later half of the film, as we get a little bit more fantastical, start looking a little wonky is almost unacceptable. Why do I call this movie a miracle? Because despite the messy production, the trimmed runtime, and the wonky VFX and the undercooked villain, the movie ended up still being a very entertaining and great entry into the MCU and into the Captain America franchise in totality. Way everyone brought their A game and brought such strong performances, adding to the intense moments and the emotional moments. The really simple but very effective social political thriller plot line that was introduced here that kept me on the edges of my seat, and also pissed me off at certain moments because the way they were treating Sam, but the movie did that on purpose. And having some of the best action sequences in the MCU outweighed the issues that I had here. I think if some of those other things were not as undercooked, this probably would have been top tier MCU film, right up there with The Winter Soldier and Civil War. But unfortunately, the movie is a step down from those films while still being great on its own. While the movie may not be perfect, it's proof when done right, the MCU has a ton of life left. So with that said, I'm gonna give Captain America Brave New World a B. Question today is, what is your favorite political thriller film? Drop your comments down below and let me know, and you can watch this video right here.